Welcome to the 2018 COAG Summit on Reducing Violence Against Women and Their Children. I begin, of course, by acknowledging the traditional owners. We acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We acknowledge that the Kaurna people are the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Now, there are a lot of dignitaries in the room, and I would love to acknowledge you all. So we're just going to say, for the purposes of today, you are all dignitaries. Delegates, you represent wonderful people, organisations, constituencies, jurisdictions. So I acknowledge you all. And as always, I acknowledge those who work to keep women and children safe. I pay tribute to all of you who have worked long and hard to protect women and their children from violence, to support survivors, and to advocate for greater funding, resources and action to address these issues. Let's go back a step. My name is Natasha Stott Despoja. I'm actually a former senator, a former diplomat, global ambassador for women and girls, and now a non-executive director. I'm also the inaugural chair of RVAW, the Foundation to Prevent Violence Against Women and Their Children. It's been one of the great privileges of my life to hold that role. But today, I'm actually here as a South Australian. I'm here to chair this event, and I'm really proud to welcome all of you to my home city and state. I hope that, especially those of you from interstate, will get an opportunity to enjoy all that is the best of South Australia, and I could start with wine and hags or pubs and churches for which we are famous. So whatever floats your boat, I hope you enjoy your time here. But it's also fitting, on a more serious note, that this summit takes place in Adelaide, South Australia, because we're approaching our 125th anniversary of women's suffrage. So in December next year, we'll celebrate the 125th anniversary of legislation that enabled women in South Australia, for the first time anywhere in Australia and indeed the world, to stand for Parliament and, of course, have the vote. So this anniversary is providing a bit of context for this summit. It reminds us of the progress we've made, but also some of the challenges that lie ahead, specifically in relation to removing barriers, economic, social, and political barriers for women and girls. So over the next 2 days, we'll discuss how we can create an Australia in which women and children feel and are safe, are free from violence, and are able to be and do anything they want. Now, many of you are more than familiar with the statistics on the issues that we're discussing and debating, so I'm not going to retell them for you, and we'll have better people than I to talk about data shortly. But I want to remind you what the international research tells us absolutely clearly, and that is that violence against women is more likely to occur where gender inequality is ingrained in social and cultural norms, structures and practices. We also note that gender inequality is not the same for all people, and specifically women. Racism, colonisation, ableism, homophobia and transphobia, these and other forms of discrimination and disadvantage intersect with gender inequality to affect the nature and experience of violence against different women. So, we also acknowledge that addressing the barriers women face and the issues with which we must deal as a society, they can be a bit challenging. So this summer, we don't necessarily have to ignore those other problems that we know that exist as well. For example, the problems that exist in institutional settings. We must constantly challenge the sexism which pervades our culture. We're only just starting to begin to deal with the impact of, say, the Me Too movement, or the impact, for example, of sexual harassment in everyday life. We do have to resolve the treatment of older Australians and indeed of refugees and asylum seekers. And we still need to mobilise the community so that we are all part of the solution in dealing with these difficult topics. And we're also in the digital age, and of course there's a hashtag to encourage discussions. Watch me stuff this up. No, that's not the hashtag. Go to hashtag COAG RVAW Summit. That's the most pirate you'll get from me today. Go to hashtag COAG RVAW Summit. This afternoon is a conversation for delegates. I'm aware that there will be ministers who are attending, and I can see almost, I don't know what the collective sort of noun is, but there's a posse of them around here, just here. They will pop in from time to time, and I want to acknowledge them, those that are here and expected. The Honourable Kelly O'Dwyer, the Commonwealth Minister for Women. Ms Michelle Landry, Commonwealth Assistant Minister for Families and Social Services. The Honourable Michelle Lensick, MLC, South Australian Minister for Human Services, who is here, I can see. Ms Carolyn Power, who is our South Australian Assistant Minister for the Prevention of Domestic Violence. Also here, thank you both for your hosting of this summit today. The Honourable Prue Goward MP, New South Wales Minister for the Prevention of Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. The Honourable Yvette Berry, MLA, Australian Capital Territory Minister for Women and Minister for the Prevention of Domestic and Family Violence. The Honourable Natalie Hutchins, MP, Victorian Minister for Women and the Minister for the Prevention of Violence. The Honourable Diane Farmer, MP, Queensland Minister for Child Safety, Youth and Women and Minister for the Prevention of Domestic and Family Violence. The Honourable Dale Wakefield, MLA, Northern Territory Minister for Territory Families. And the Honourable Jackie Petrusma, MP, Tasmanian Minister for Women. And last but not least, in terms of State Ministers, the Honourable Simone McGurk, MLA, West Australian Minister for Women's Interests, Child Protection, Prevention of Family and Domestic Violence and Community Services. That's quite enough, oh my gosh. There's a lot of honourable women in the room. Please welcome them. I also acknowledge that the Honourable Paul Fletcher, the Commonwealth Minister for Families and Social Services, will join us tomorrow, as will the Premier of South Australia, the Honourable Stephen Marshall MP. I'm pleased tonight that we'll be welcoming the Deputy Premier of South Australia, the Honourable Vicky Chapman MP. However, with all that political aggrandising, this summit is actually about you, the delegates, the men and women who work every day to create a safe Australia. Thank you for the work that you do, and I wish to particularly acknowledge the 2015 Australian of the Year, Rosie Batty, who, building on the efforts and expertise of women's activists, as well as her own experiences, has harnessed a national conversation about what we all, not just those in this room, can do to end family and domestic violence and sexual assault. Today we're here to bring together experts from across the country to shape the fourth action plan of the National Plan to Reduce Violence Against Women and their Children. The plan and the action plans to date have not only produced a range of important initiatives and a really unprecedented collaborative approach to the issues, they've also ensured that violence against women and children has remained on the national radar and the country's political agenda.